Hey guys and gals, hope everyone's doing well. So the next thing I'm going to be doing to my car is installing a very important safety feature. Now this safety feature is very unlikely to ever need to be used. But if I do ever need it, I'll be glad I have it, and that is a fire extinguisher. So as some of you may know, you could spec your car to come with a fire extinguisher mounted just in front of and beneath the front passenger seat. This car was not spec'd with one, and so I was able to find a company that actually sells OEM fire extinguishers and with the brackets and all of that. And that company is called OEM Extinguishers. And so I have the box here. I just got it. I'm going to be showing you what this looks like when you take it out. And then I'm hopefully going to be able to show you a decent video of how to install one of these in your car if you were to decide to do it. So stay tuned, and if you like this video, if you like what you're about to see, don't forget to hit like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments, and this should be a pretty cool one, so stay tuned because there is more to come. All right, so this is the box that came from OEM Extinguishers. Now, all I did was cut it open. I haven't taken anything out of this box, so I'm going to be doing, I guess you could say, this unboxing video with you, and you'll be seeing for the first time what this comes with. But you can see it comes with some brochures, some stickers here, a bunch of this popcorn stuff, and I guess I'm just going to start taking out these parts to see what we have. I hate this popcorn stuff, so I'm going to try to get everything out and then move this box. Oh, I can already see this is going to be messy. There we go. Okay, let's get this out of here and make sure I don't have anything else of importance in here. I really hate when this stuff gets all over the place. All right, so there's a few little pieces here, no big deal. All right, so let's see what we have here. So this feels like it's probably the fire extinguisher based on the weight. And let me get out a little knife here to cut this thing open. Oh, here we go. All right, let's see what we have here. This, maybe it may already have the bracket attached to it, or not sure. Let's see. So these fire extinguishers come from Germany. So that's something a little reassuring to know, is that these, just like the car, and like the car that this fire extinguisher is made for, is from Germany. So they are called, the brand is called Gloria, and they're pretty hard to come by. I remember keeping my eye out for these fire extinguishers for a long time. They're really not easy to come by, and they are not cheap. So I will caution you about that, to be ready. But anyways, here we go. Here it is in the package. There it is. This is the Gloria fire extinguisher. Presumably it's got instructions on it in German and some other stuff. It does look like it's fully charged there based on that little gauge. I don't know if you could see that, but I could see it from here. So let's see what else we have here that comes in this package. I imagine that this is the hardware, like the screws and the nuts, or whatever kind of hardware is needed to secure this under the seat. So let's see what we have here. All right. Looks like some mounting bracket there and some other hardware. Oh, look. This is actually Porsche brand mounting hardware. So this is, no lie, this is Porsche OEM parts here. All right. I think that's about it. Let's just see if there's anything interesting here. It looks like we've got some cool stickers. That way you can advertise that you have a fire extinguisher in the car if you want. I imagine there's some operating instructions, and a receipt is in here and all that. So anyways, so I think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out exactly how this thing is going to be installed, and then hopefully I'll be able to show you a somewhat of a decent DIY installation of this. Should be pretty easy. I imagine it's just removing a few screws in the front of the seat that hold the seat to the car. But anyways, we're going to get to that in just a little bit, so stay tuned. All right, so here's everything outside of the box. You have the fire extinguisher. You've got a couple of mounting brackets, some looks like some nuts and bolts, and you can see that these are indeed Porsche parts, and judging by the number, these parts were originally made for the 997. Now, the gentleman that I was in communication with at this company, OEM Extinguisher, said that the mounting hardware and brackets are the same for both the 997 and the 991. So presumably they didn't make any updates to this, but you can see these parts are indeed Porsche parts. They actually say made in Germany on them, as you would expect, and it's great. These are actual OEM parts and brackets, so if you're paying attention and you want to look at the part numbers, there you go. Here it is for, I guess that's one of the main parts of the bracket, but in case you're paying attention. And then here's the fire extinguisher. So let's see what this thing is like to take out. All right, I see this thing. I can already see that as my car is catching on fire, I'm going to be struggling to figure out how to remove this thing. Imagine it's really not that difficult, but of course everything is difficult when you're trying to do a DIY video. So anyways, I'm going to get back to this as soon as I figure out exactly how it works, because I don't want to make a dummy out of myself, which is not very difficult for me to do if you've watched any of my other videos. Oh, I see. Let me see. Does that come out like that? No. I think it's just maybe it's supposed to loosen up and then you pull it out. Let me come back to this. All right, so of course, silly me, this just really requires a little bit of brute strength. There's really nothing to it. I just had to pull on it a little bit and slide it out, and you can see that it goes right back in, and then of course you tighten it down like that. So there we go. Loosen it. I guess when you're in the heat of the moment with a real fire, you're not gonna hesitate to yank this thing out. So obviously this is not something that you would be doing on a regular basis, because I mean, let's be honest, if you're having to use a fire extinguisher on a regular basis in your passenger vehicle, I mean, come on, what are you doing wrong there? Anyways, there's your fire extinguisher. All right, more to come. And once again, these are the parts. Looks like it's basically the fire extinguisher with the thing that holds it, this plastic part, and then it looks like there's 3 parts to this bracket and some nuts and bolts here. So we're going to figure out how this thing all attaches. So I've hit a little bit of a snag here, and I haven't even started, but what I thought was supposed to be a pretty simple installation, after just doing a little bit of due diligence and researching the steps for installing this OEM fire extinguisher bracket, it turns out it's not just a simple taking out a few screws and lifting the seat out or anything like that. It's actually quite a bit more involved. It's going to involve taking the seat out, and the extra work that's involved is getting these brackets. They need to be mounted inside the seat, and I found these illustrations online. This is here, I believe, a 997 seat. This here is a 991, and you could see that there's these are the different brackets here. And anyways, this is apparently going to take a little bit more work than I thought. And at this point, I'm so heavily invested in this that I'm gonna do it. But anyways, I'm going to try to document this whole process for this OEM extinguisher mount, and obviously this is going to be a lot more complicated than getting an aftermarket one, because for the OEM look and fit is, you know, leave it to the Porsche engineers to make working on a Porsche just so much fun. So hang in there. I'll be trying to show you this step by step without dropping too many expletives, and we'll be back. All right, so to get this thing started, I'm gonna have to remove these two star-headed screws, one here and one there. And I've got the star socket. This is an E12, as you can see there. I have this set of these because I needed that for when I was removing the exhaust tips. So there's two in the back, there's going to be two in the front. I'm going to have to slide the seat back, and obviously I've got some cleaning to do here, and I'll have to do the same. Once I have all four of those screws removed, then I will reposition this seat back to the center, and then there's some wires I'll have to tip the whole assembly back, and there's some wires underneath that I need to carefully disconnect before I try to pull the whole seat out. But I'm gonna skip showing you the removal of the screws because I think you all are smart enough to understand how a screw is removed. But there's two in the front, two in the back. Slide the seat back, remove the two in the front, and then we'll go from there. While I'm sitting here recording, I just want to document, for the purpose of knowing how everything goes, that this screw, it looks like it's in the third hole from the bottom on both sides. Just want to make sure that I get everything back assembled the way it was when we started. And here are our first two screws. Alright, so to remove the front screws, you've got to first remove these plastic protectors that are covering the track, one over there and one here. And it's kind of hard to do this with one hand, but I'm going to try. You just have to stick this little thing in there, and oh, look at that. That slid out nice and easy. I'm going to do the same on the other side, and then I'm going to begin removing these here with the E12 star socket. And then once we have that, I'll slide the seat back towards the middle of the track so that, well, actually no, I will tip the seat back and then remove the electrical connections underneath. So stay tuned. Alright, so I've got the 4 screws removed from under the seat, but before I tip the seat back and start disconnecting the electronics, you want to make sure that you disconnect the battery. And so I've disconnected just the negative terminal. I've used this fancy rubber pot holder thing for the kitchen to cover up that negative cable, and essentially this allows the system inside the car to discharge so that you don't accidentally set off an airbag. As well, you don't want to trip any error codes. Now, there's no guarantee that'll happen, but we shall see. Alright, so before you pull the seat out, as you can see, I have it tipped back and I have it propped up with this air compressor. There's a few things you want to make sure you remove because you don't want to yank these. You'll have to pardon the noise of the kids outside screaming. But anyways, you want to remove the cable from this part of the seat bracket. And then there are a couple of other spots right here. And this cable that attaches right here, I believe this is the memory module. And this is controls, not exactly sure what. But we just want to make sure that before we actually pull the seat out that we've got all of the wires disconnected, because you don't want to yank on these wires. And of course, clean this out. Alright, stay tuned. Alright, well, with a little bit of wiggling, I was able to get this this piece out here. I'm not sure if you could see it, but it's just got a little plug there that goes right into that hole, right next to this big square hole. So the next one to remove is, whoops, this one right up here. We want to get that one, that little guy popped out. So let's see if I can do this one. That one came out nice and easy. And we want to disconnect carefully. These are the ones that I always worry about. This little cable right here. I see what needs to be disconnected. Sorry if I have it blocked with the light, but there's a little tab there. There we go. Unplug that, which goes right there. And then the last piece is this part right here, which I believe this piece just pops out like that. And then this, once this thing pops out, then this whole piece should also pop out. Alright, so I figured out that this little black piece here has to slide all the way out, but since this thing is blocking it, you gotta kind of take this out. Now, you can pull out this black piece all the way, and then this comes out. So now, the seat is completely, I'm gonna double check down there, but I think all the wires are disconnected. And I'm just going to go ahead and put this back here for now so that we don't get it all tangled up anywhere. And there we go, right in there. And if all of this is good, I'm going to be pulling out the seat and starting to work on it. All right, so now that I've got everything disconnected, time to carefully remove the seat out of the car. I'm going to lay it down here, flip this forward. I expect this is a little bit of a heavy seat, so I'm going to very carefully not proud of how weak I must have looked. But that there is a heavy seat. Whew. All right, well, here is the seat in all its glory. Got it sitting here, top of my city garbage can. And you can see that there's quite a bit of stuff in these complicated seats. These are the 14-way seats, just a reminder. So you've got all kinds of adjustments here. It's ventilated, so you can see, I guess this is probably a duct. There's a fan right there, I believe, that blows the air, helps air come out of the seats. But anyways, you can see how complex it is under this seat. Now, just to give you an idea, this bracket here, this top part where I'm tapping, that's what's going to hold the main part of the fire extinguisher. And somehow this is supposed to kind of go in there like that. And I do believe that I'm going to have to remove some of this stuff here in order to get this bracket behind there. So hang tight, everyone, because we're going to be getting to all that very soon. But here it is. Well, here we are. The seat is now inside the house on the dining room table, which means I either have a death wish or I may be getting divorce papers filed soon. But no, seriously, I had to move this inside because this is actually, the more I sat and analyzed how to put these brackets where they're going to need to be put into the seat, the more I realized this is a pretty complicated DIY. And let me reposition the camera so that I can show you in greater detail what needs to happen. Hang tight. All right, so I'm gonna do the best I can to show you what needs to happen here. So just to go back a moment, the goal is going to be to have this fire extinguisher bracket mounted, or this holder to be mounted to this bracket, which will be mounted to this metal plate here underneath the seat cushion, and it'll sit like that, more or less. Now, in order to get this bracket mounted over here, which it's hard to see, but you have to kind of weave this bracket into all this other stuff. We're gonna have to put these two brackets here, these two are going to have to sit behind this metal plate here. One of these brackets, this one here, will go up near the top here, and I don't know if you could see where the little holes are there. There's more holes here, and then so that will be this bracket will go behind there, and then this rectangular bracket here will go further down in there. Now, what you can't see easily with the camera is there is like no space to get back there. It's so hard to imagine being able to get these brackets in there without really dismantling this whole thing. So in order to be able to improve my access back here and get these brackets here attached on the inside so that I can then put this on the outside, we're gonna have to start taking off some screws here. And first we're gonna have to at least either remove or just move out of the way some of these electronics. And then I also wanna bring to your attention this screw here, right there, and another one right there. I believe those two screws, which are 4mm Allens, are what's holding the seat cushion to the frame. So these attach to the seat cushion, I guess, holder, which are, I think once we remove these two screws, we can push this seat cushion away, get back in there, and I think that will make access overall easier. So hang tight, because if you're watching this video, it's because you want to install one of these OEM fire extinguishers, and as far as I know, I have not seen any other DIY videos out there, and this may be the only one that anybody ever manages to put out there. So hope you're picking up everything here, because this is going to be a little bit tedious, so stay tuned, more to come. All right, so we're going to start by removing this torque screw here. I already loosened it a little bit, and this is using a T20. Great way to start losing little screws is to just be sloppy. There's another one down here, and we'll get that one removed. Sometimes it's easier to just work with your hands. All right. There's the other one. Now, once we have these two screws removed, this piece here moves out of the way fairly easily. I'm going to move the camera to see if I can make it a little easier to see. Actually, this light doesn't work very well up here. So, let's see if I can show you what we've got going on here. We're getting there. We're getting there. See what else we have to move. There's brackets all over this thing. So hang tight. All right, so lighting in here is a little bit tricky, but now that I've got these two torque screws removed, which kind of move this out of the way, I also have a few other screws. I've got this larger torque screw right there. I believe that's a T30. And then this T20. Basically, I want to pull this whole black plastic bracket out of the way. There is one other little connector here. I don't know if you could see this, but there's a couple of copper wires going in right there. Looks like those could be ground or something, I'm not sure. But these do have to get removed in order to take this black plastic bracket and move it out of the way. There are probably a few other Torx screws in there that I'll be getting to, so stay tuned. All right, so now I got this one other little screw out from right back in there. And now I'm going to begin undoing these screws here to try and get this whole piece moved out of the way. Alright, so as I'm trying to remove these copper wires, I realize that this plastic wire, zip tie thing is in the way. And so I'm going to go ahead and pop that out using this tool. And I'm going to also end up popping this one out here because I'm going to have to do that. So let's get to that. And as you can see, they indeed pop out fairly easy. This one here popped out from that little hole, and that one there popped out from there. Go ahead and remove this bolt now. And there she goes. And now that T30. And here comes that T30. See if I can use a magnet to get it out. There we go. Little magnet tool comes in handy. Alright, so this here is important. You see this little double-sided screw with the shorter end pointing towards the seat. That shorter end goes into that little brass-colored threaded hole that's there, and that is also what is used to attach this plastic bracket to the seat frame. So just remember, this little screw here goes into that hole, and then that's what these copper wires attach to. Alright, making some progress here. I see this thing is slowly but surely starting to show some ability to move out of the way. Just a couple more screws there. This piece here, this black plastic trim piece here, this also comes off. Unfortunately, I can't do it with one hand, but with a little pry tool, there's a couple of little tabs underneath there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll be able to pry that off, which will help give me a little better access back there. And just like that, it pops right off. Very easy. So far, the easiest part of this whole thing. Alright, so there looks like there's a T20 screw right there, and another one right back there. Let's see if it's right underneath the corner here. There's another T20 screw, and I think I'm going to need to pull those two T20 screws to help pull this thing away. Alright, so now that I've gotten these couple of screws here out, these Torx screws, there's one at the top of that gray thing and one at the bottom. I can move it over, and you can see there's one more Torx screw back there, and I think that one might be the one that's the last one holding this thing on. Let's give it a try. Well, sure enough, after removing that last Torx screw, this whole thing came off the that bracket there, and I think we're getting close to having some room to work with here. Alright, so the next step after pulling this whole bracket thing away from this metal plate here is to remove that screw, and that should allow us to push the seat cushion assembly away so that we can get back in there with those two rectangular brackets. And yes, indeed, after removing those two screws there was one there and one there, we can now push this back a little bit so we can work our hands back in there and get these rectangular brackets. This is the one that has to go further down, and this little notch that you see cut out on the upper left, that's the direction that this is going to go in, because you could see the shape of that piece right there is perfect for that. Well, I can't believe it, but I actually got all of the screws for this bracket here. I got them all threaded. They're not tightened, they're all loose right now, but I got them all threaded and attached, so all I got to do is put some Loctite. There's two, let me see, try to get this angle for you guys. There's two screws, there's one right there, and I don't know if you could see it where I'm pointing, but one right there, and then there's one right there, and another there and there. I'm sorry, no, it's that one right there. Anyways, there's actually two screws for the top bracket, and then I'm sorry, there's 4 screws for the top bracket, 2 screws for the bottom bracket. I'm going to get some Loctite on those threads before I tighten them all up, and we'll be back. All right, so finally got this bracket nice and secure, all the threads Loctited, and we are ready to start reassembling everything here. Wish me luck. I'm going to start with attaching the seat cushion with these 4mm Allen screws, and then working my way back down. All right, so in putting this all back together, I started with the big T30 Torx screws, which were, let's see, this one here in the back behind the gray electronic thing that's going to get put over that. There's also one up here. There's a T30 over there, and the one that was used, that post for those 2 copper wires right there. You could see those 2 copper wires, and that's also I'm sorry, that wasn't a T30. Apologies, that was a 10mm double-sided, double-threaded bolt. But those are the ones, those are the big ones that hold this big plastic thing onto the metal base there, if you will. I really can't believe that I got this whole thing put back together with all the screws, nothing left over. I made sure I found the right screws for the right holes. Everything is put back in place just the way it was, except with the addition of this new bracket. I think the key here for me that I'm glad I did was using Loctite on all the screws and threads, because this is not something I ever want to have to do again. So stay tuned, because now I'm going to be attaching this thing, which is going to hold the fire extinguisher, and then we'll see what that looks like. All right, and here is the holder for the fire extinguisher mounted to the bracket there. Now we're going to put the fire extinguisher in. And there she is. All right, I'm going to take the fire extinguisher out and get ready to put this back in the car. Okay, so I thought I would go ahead and take a weight measurement on this seat, because this seat is indeed a very heavy seat, as I can attest to trying to lift this thing out of my car not being a very easy task. And after weighing it using my trusty bathroom scale, which is also made in Germany, I came out with a weight of 63.5 pounds. So for those of you who are wondering how much one of these 14-way vented heated seats weighs, it's about 63.5 pounds. All right, so I want to go through some of the tools, or pretty much all of the tools that were used during this DIY project. Now, if I'm showing it at the beginning of the video, some of them might not make sense to you, but they will if you watch the DIY, and you'll see some of these tools being used or understand where they're used. So I'll start with the trim tool, which this was used to remove a couple of the wire attachment, the wire clips that were secured to the frame of the seat. There was a couple here, and there was the wires cluster that's attached there before you remove the seat from the car. And then, well, let's see, we have the E12 star socket that was used to remove the 4 bolts that were holding the seat to the car. I have both in screwdriver and in socket bit form. I have T30 star bits and T20. So T20 and T30, as well as a 4mm Allen, which those are used to remove the 2 screws that hold the seat cushion to the frame. I had a couple of different lengths of 10mm sockets, which were used for a few different nuts. And then I actually needed an 8mm socket for a couple of nuts that were securing some wires inside the electronics there. That's the 8mm one was for these right here. Let's see what else. A couple of random extensions for the 1/4 inch and the 3/8 inch sockets. I used also one of these electric ratcheting tools. Some Loctite. I used Loctite on almost all the screws to make sure that none of this stuff comes loose, because I never want to have to do this again. I used these wire cutters here to cut some of the zip ties that I used to re-secure some of the wires back. These pliers came in handy when I was trying to hold a couple of nuts as I was tightening it on the other end with the ratchet. This tool here was pretty much just used to remove the plastic covers that were over the rails prior to removing the seat from the car. And then one of my favorite tools that I like to have handy when I'm doing DIY projects around the car is this telescopic magnetic stick thingy. So you can see that you can extend this thing, and if you drop a screw somewhere, very nicely picks it up. And I will tell you, I had to use it a couple of times with this project. So aside from that, I think that pretty much covers all of the tools that I used. So if you're seeing this at the beginning of the video, it'll all make sense to you as you go through this video. And if you're seeing it at the end, well, you have a pretty comprehensive list. Anyways, that's it. Take care, and we'll be back. All right, guys and gals. Well, before we wrap this thing up, just remember, we're going to do everything now in the reverse order. So I'm taking the seat from the dining room table, which I know my wife is going to be thrilled about, and I'm going to just do the reverse order of putting it back in the car. Remember that this seat is heavy, especially if you have this particular type of seat, these 14 ways, and I would imagine the 18-way ones are at least as heavy. Just remember, these things are heavy. Be careful putting it in the car. And you'll also want to remember to plug it in plug the seat in with the wiring connectors underneath before you reattach the battery. Once you have those cables connected under the seat, then you reattach the battery. The reason you do that is because if you reconnect the battery without the seat there, it might trigger a fault code. It probably will, because the car will detect something's missing. So just do it in that order. And you may have to connect the seat, then reconnect the battery before you fully bolt the seat down. And that is because remember that you'll have to slide the seat up and back, forward and backwards, in order to access those 4 bolts that attach it to the car. And of course you won't be able to slide it, especially if you have the electronic seats, unless it's plugged into the battery. So just remember that little detail. It's a little important detail. And that's it. So hang tight. We're gonna get the seats installed, and then we're gonna come in for the big reveal. Stay tuned. Well, guys and gals, it's finally done. And it wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. Although for a little bit, I was starting to get a little bit nervous as to how I was going to actually finish this job. But if I were to compare it to any of the other DIY jobs that I've done, I would say this is about comparable, on par with doing the air filter, the engine air filter on the back of this 991.2. So if you think you can handle the air filter on a 991.2, then this job of installing the factory, the OEM fire extinguisher kit with the mounting brackets, you could probably do that too. Now, I would say that the difficulty of this also depends a bit on which seats you have. I think that with the seats that I have, which are the 14-way seats that have vents, ventilated seats and heating and, basically nicely loaded seats, I think it's a little bit harder because there's more electronics and things that you have to move out of the way in order to get the brackets properly installed. I believe that with some of the lighter weight seating options, the bucket seats, it's probably easier to install this. Now, the downside, as with most Porsche OEM parts, is the cost. So you will spend a bit more to have this Porsche OEM fire extinguisher kit than you would if you were to get, for example, something like one of the Rennline kits. But will it have that OEM look and fit and just the reliability and dependability that you would expect from an OEM parts manufacturer? That would be up to you. I would say maybe the fire extinguisher in and of itself by another brand could be as reliable and dependable, but it won't necessarily provide that same look, fit, and finish. So there you have it right there. You can see how nicely it looks installed. It looks just the same way it would as if you had optioned it from the factory. What I like about this particular kit is that you can, with these seats here, you can extend the thigh extender to almost completely cover the fire extinguisher so that it won't get in the way of your legs. Your legs won't be rubbing up against it. But what's even more cool about this is that you can move the seat, as you can see I'm doing right now. You can move it forward and backwards, and the fire extinguisher moves right there with it. I know that with some of the other fire extinguisher mounts, they mount to the end of these rails here, and it's a fixed position. Of course, you can adjust the position of the fire extinguisher with some of the other kits, but it does limit your ability to move your seats and make adjustments on the fly like you can with this. So there you have it. You could see how it came out. Overall, I would say that I'm very happy with this modification. I've been wanting to add a fire extinguisher to this car because I do intend at some point in the near future to participate in some track related activities. I don't know how soon, but now I know that I'll do it with peace of mind, knowing that I have it in the car. And well, it's just a safety feature that even though you'll probably never need it, it's nice to have it even when you don't need it. But of course, it would be terrible to not have it when you do. So was it worth it? For me, I would say definitely. Is it going to be worth it for you? Well, keeping in mind the complexity of installing it in these kind of seats, you know, that may affect your decision. But I would say that if you're fairly handy with tools and you can do some of the other DIY mods that you've seen me do on this car, then it would probably be a worthwhile investment. So there you have it. And I hope you enjoyed this DIY video. And if you did, and I know you did, because if you watched it to this point, then you either really like this video, you like watching me, which I'm not so sure about that, or you really want to put one of these fire extinguishers in your car. And if you liked it, don't forget to hit like, leave your comments, good ones, bad ones. I love the haters. Leave me your comments. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Anyways, take care, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.